Welcome to Work Matters, a podcast where we explore what leaders can do to make work more productive, valuable, meaningful, and impactful. My name is Thomas Bertels. I'm the founder of Purpose Works Consulting and the host of this podcast. My guest today is Jeff Hoover. Jeff is an accomplished senior-level executive leader with over 25 years of healthcare, sales, marketing, and sales operations experience in both Fortune 50 and startup organizations. Jeff's passion is to helping others discover the best in themselves and realize their full potential, both personally and professionally, through a principle-based approach he defines as transformational leadership. Jeff, welcome to the show.
Thank you, Thomas. It's a pleasure to be here.
So, Jeff, let's get started with definitions. What is transformational leadership for you, and why does it matter?
Transformational leadership is made up of really servant and authentic leadership combined with living your legacy as a leader purposefully every day. Underneath transformational leadership is really three principles that make up transformational leadership, which is coaching excellence, managing transitions, and being a purposeful culture architect. And the reason that this is important is that we get so busy in work life doing our business and the quarter-to-quarter performances and everything that we forget about how impactful good, strong leadership is on an organization, on customers, on just having the opportunity to really just make a difference in the lives of employees and customers by being purposeful about how you show up every day.
So why does that matter today?
Well, I would say with the reason that it matters is that so many times, particularly for first and second line managers, they are put into positions of being people leaders because they were really good individual contributors. But yet most companies don't prepare people to make the transition from being a successful individual contributor to being a successful leader of people. And what you end up with is people who want to just say, if people would just do this job like I used to do this job, everything would be fine. And we all know that that never works. And so the idea of being very thoughtful and purposeful about transformational leadership is that it helps to prepare you to have the greatest impact. And really your job as a leader is to optimize the capabilities of others. If you invest in them in that manner with the idea that my success as a leader is totally dependent on the success of the team I work with, it becomes a very unselfish way to approach success. And by investing in these other folks, you become a much better leader. You actually build a legacy of being a strong leader.
What role do you see transformational leaders play in making work more meaningful and impactful?
Let me start with a little deeper definition on the three principles that underlie transformational leadership and then how each of those play out. Let's just start with coaching excellence. So there are two principles that make up coaching excellence. They are ask, don't tell, and listen to understand, not to respond. Again, I'll repeat those. Ask, don't tell, and listen to understand, not to respond. If you do just those two principles on a daily basis, you will be a better coach. So many times, leaders have a vision of the way they think things should be, and they tell their teams what to do and think they're coaching. That's not coaching. Coaching is your ability as a leader to help somebody self-realize. What you're trying to create is a learning environment, how to think critically when that leader is not present. You will not get them to think critically on their own if you're always telling them what to do when you're in person or remote, coaching them. So don't counsel, coach. Ask, don't tell, listen to understand, not to respond. So that's the coaching excellence component. So what does that get you? What that gets you is a team of people who believe that you believe in them. They believe they are playing a winnable game because you're asking them for their ideas, their strengths, their concepts. Let them fail if they make the wrong decision. Just don't let them make a critical failure. And by empowering them to be stronger decision makers, you will build a culture, which is one of the other components. Becoming really a culture architect is that you're investing in others. And then the third component is really just about managing transitions. Look, I think everybody on this podcast, listening to this podcast, likely is very familiar with change management, likely have implemented change management. Look, I will be the first to say change management is critical anytime you're doing any project, anytime you're putting anything in place that requires a change in behavior. Having a good change management program is critical. However, that's only part of the equation. I don't quite frankly care whether you use Cotter, Connor, ProSci, CAP. The change program that you use, just use it well. But the piece that's missing is transition management. You could complete the change. You've reorganized your sales force, let's say. That change is complete. However, the people have not transitioned. You hear things like, I liked it the way it used to be. I liked my old boss. I don't really see how this structure is going to work. This is telling you that the people have not transitioned even though the change is complete. So as a transformational leader, if you want to have a legacy of building strong teams who remember those as some of the best work days of their life, the three components that you want to think about is coaching excellence, managing transitions, and being purposeful about being a culture architect. Does that help, Thomas?
That helps a lot. So let's maybe dig a little bit deeper into the culture architect role. So what does it mean, and what are the implications for leadership behaviors?
I think the first thing to think about when you think of culture is that it's not somebody else's job. You will hear people say, culture is driven from top down, or culture is driven from bottom up. The answer is it's both. So let's start with what we would say is a definition of culture. And really, culture definition, I think most people would agree, most literature indicates it's the common norms and behaviors of an organization or team. So if you want to have a culture where people believe in one another, where they feel motivated and inspired, how do you show up every day as a leader to create an environment where that becomes the norms and behaviors? And so it's everybody's part. If you are an individual contributor and you think senior management has no idea what they're doing, what are you doing to example the behaviors that you wish you saw in them? Or are you feeding the beast of negativity and pulling down the culture because you think it's somebody else's problem? If you happen to be that senior leader, make sure that your words and actions match. Look, as a senior leader, there's really three communication fundamentals that your organization wants to know. Tell me what you know and can tell me. Tell me what you know and can't tell me. And tell me what you don't know and when you're going to find out. If you do those three things, you will create a transparent culture where people can rely on you. So don't expect your organization to do something that you're not willing to do. And so culture, as it relates to transformational leadership, is just a critical element. Does that help, Thomas?
Super helpful. What are some typical mistakes you see people make when it comes to building a new culture?
They put a process around it without the realization that there is people behind that process. So many times you see, well, we're doing this and we're doing this and we're messaging this and we have this campaign and all of that. But when it really comes down to it, it's understanding, what do your people feel every day? What do they think every day? What do they say about your company in circles outside of the company? And you need to get a handle on that. And the way that you do that is through good transformational leadership and transparency. Is just checking in with your teams, having a representative sample to say, here's what we're hearing. Now, what are we going to do about it? It doesn't mean that you have to like or dislike what you're hearing, but you have to be real with what you're hearing. And then be very proactive about putting things in place that are visible to your organization, whether that's a team of 5 or a company of 50,000. is be very purposeful about what you're doing and what that is meant to do to help you fulfill your purpose as a company and how it ties to your vision.
So you mentioned purpose, right? That's a hot topic these days, and a lot of companies talk about that. And you've worked in organizations where purpose was front and center. What do you see as the interplay between purpose and transformational leadership, and overall, what have you seen as like the importance of purpose when it comes to organizational performance?
Look, Thomas, every team that I've ever led, there are three critical elements to starting the journey with that team. And it's understand your purpose, your principles, and your priorities. And it starts with purpose. It is, why do we show up every day? Defining your why, defining your organization's why is critical. Otherwise, how do I know whether to follow you? How do I know what I'm running to? So it all starts with purpose. And many times you see purpose statements. Some people will call those mission statements or vision statements, but it really is, what is your purpose? What is your why? Why do you do what you do? And so many times people make purpose statements or vision or mission statements that if you said that about any company or any competitor, you wouldn't know that it's yours. So take the time to really define your purpose that is unique to your organization, that is unique to your team. And by investing that time, you'll understand where your North Star is, no matter whether business is going really well or whether business is going really bad. Having a North Star that is aligned to your purpose is critical. And then the way transformational leadership ties into that is that's the behaviors that your leadership team shows up with, or you show up with as a leader every day, that helps to reinforce that our purpose is real.
So how can leaders get started on this journey? What advice would you give people who realize the need for becoming a more transformational leader? How should they get started?
Whether or not you are an organization that does employee engagement surveys or not, you'll have a sense of how engaged your employees are. And be sure not to wear rose-colored glasses in that estimate, because it's easy to say our company is great, our mission is great, and the team is a mess, and you're losing top talent to competitors, and your turnover rate is terribly high, and you're just losing good talent. So you first have to be real with yourself. Then you have to have a representative sample, a diverse group of people in your organization to give you the real story, and encourage them to give you the real story, not just beat them up because you don't like what they heard. So start on the journey of listening to understand what is the realities of our company today. Now, if you've been good at defining your purpose, you'll be able to clearly see the gap between where are we and where do we want to be in our purpose statement. And then you start to work on those one at a time. Don't try to bite them all off at the same time. You'll overwhelm your organization. So start with the one, and the way that you can prioritize which gap to start with is which one is more likely to let the team feel like they're playing a winnable game. It is critical in any culture, is that I wake up every day thinking, not only do I make a difference and that I have a purpose that is aligned to the purpose of my organization, but I feel like I can win.
That makes perfect sense. Jeff, thank you so much for sharing your thoughts on transformational leadership. I specifically enjoyed the 3 Ps: purpose, principles, and priorities. Mm-hmm. And dear listeners, if you enjoyed this conversation, please check out the other episodes of our podcast. We're posting new episodes every other week, and we look forward to your comments and feedback.
Thank you.